As fantasy managers, every week we have very crucial and important decisions to make about our starting lineups. And in this video, I'll be talking about 5 unfortunate players that won't have the opportunity to grace that starting lineup for your teams here in week 2. These are guys that I have on the bust radar as potential names to watch out for that could let you down this week, and you don't want to have anything to do with that. So without further ado, we're not wasting any time before we jump into today's episode. Let's get started. As we jump into today's episode, make sure to smash the heck out of that like button if you are pumped for NFL Week 2 action. Monday Night Football was just the other day, and I already can't wait for Thursday night. Like, this is what I live for, man. I can't freaking wait to watch this Chiefs-Chargers game. It's going to be one of the best games of the year, I hope. Hopefully we get a Herbert-Mahomes shootout. Besides the point, we're not really talking through those names today, but I am super jacked for this week, and I hope you guys are too. Let's quickly recap our picks for must-sit running backs last week at the running back position. We went 5 for 5 in both the running back and receiver takes. We had Penny, Montgomery, Harris, that being Dameon Harris, Breece Hall, and Dameon Pierce, who we're starting today's episode with, all on that sit list. All 5 of them didn't have impressive outings. All 5 of our sits for the wide receiver position busted as well. So doing very, very good on the sits picks, a little bit better than we're doing on the starts picks, which we've also put out for this week. But as we all know, Week 1's the week of flukes, and that's essentially where all the guys that, you get a lot of sell high opportunities out of Week 1, let's just say that. So, interesting note, just something to comment on here very, very quickly before we start out today's video, is that quarterbacks that did not start in the preseason or didn't play any preseason in Week 1 went 3-8 here. So of those 11 QBs that didn't play preseason action, 3-8, so well below 500 for that position group. So some rust is being shaked off here. A lot of teams take Week 1 as their pseudo preseason game. Obviously you're still playing for something, but a lot of teams don't show up ready and prepared to play. So Dameon Pierce is our first must-sit player here for Week 1 action, taking on the Denver Broncos on the road. Dameon Pierce, of course, had a very, very disappointing Week 1. For a guy who I actually expected to see a lot of touches and carries head his direction for that Week 1 game, being listed as the team's starter for Week 1 action, he had a very small snap share, and that's obviously why we're looking to sit him here again in Week 2, because he played just 29% of the team's offensive snaps in favor of Rex Burkhead, who had 71% of the Texans' backfield snaps head his direction. So that's obviously concerning. It is a bit odd that we saw Burkhead outsnap him at such a high rate, despite the fact that the Texans found themselves up 17 points over Indianapolis. The game ended in a tie. The Texans covered. How about them Texans? They were 9.5-point underdogs, so a huge cover by them there. But at the end of the day, the team's starter saw just over 3/4 of the team's offensive snaps, again, to their veteran, 32-year-old running back in Rex Burkhead, who saw nearly 3/4 of those snaps head his direction. So he hasn't totally taken over this backfield and hasn't gotten that stranglehold grasp on things like I think a lot of us expected him to do Week 1 here. His ADP actually ended up vaulting over Breece Hall's towards the end of draft season because he was named the Week 1 starter. But I think this role will only expand and grow over time. I'm very optimistic still about the season-long outlook for Dameon Pierce, but in Week 2, I will set him yet again here. They are actually, the Texans, this is 10-point dogs on the road at Denver this week, so another heavy underdog game for Houston. And this game, I could definitely see getting out of hand here if the Broncos come out pissed off after losing on Monday Night Football. They could give the Texans a severe talent deficit, with the Texans, that being having a much less talented roster, a run for their money. They could get them out of game script situations where they're able to run the football and have that luxury, and we could end up seeing a lot more Rex Burkhead again here for the second straight week. So the other thing with Rex is that he's getting the receiving involvement in this backfield. 5 receptions on 8 targets in Week 1, something that Dameon Pierce wasn't super utilized on. One positive note, though, that I do want to note on Dameon Pierce before we move on here is that his opportunity share of the snaps he played was awesome. He played just 29% of the snaps again. However, he had 11 carries on those limited snaps. Rex Burkhead, on the other hand, had 14 carries in almost 3 times as many snaps. So the ratio between snaps and opportunity for Dameon Pierce is far, far higher than it was for Rex Burkhead in week 1 action. But again, still sitting Dameon Pierce on my fantasy bench for week 2 and trying to be as patient as possible with him here moving forward. Jeff Wilson Jr. is my second must-sit running back here for week 2, taking on the Seahawks at home. If you live under a rock, you didn't hear the news, Elijah Mitchell is out for the next 2 months or so, or about roughly the next 8 games. If you didn't know this, we've got an article up live on my website, sizzlefantasy.com. If you scan the QR code in the top right-hand corner of your screen, it'll take you to my website, to the memberships page. The article is free, though. You can check that out at your discretion. Read about the 3 names that are expected to fill in for him. My estimation is that Jeff Wilson Jr., we could hear some news after posting this video, but my expectation is Jeff Wilson will be the initial starter in replacement of Elijah Mitchell. He's the guy that ended up getting the touches after that incident occurred in the Chicago game. They do have, of course, Jordan Mason. They also have Tyron Davis-Price, who was a healthy scratch this past week. So there's 3 options. I broke those 3 names down in that article. But Jeff Wilson, like I said, is the week 2 name that I expect to see the majority of the work here. However, Jeff Wilson was very, very underwhelming in that contest. He somehow managed to be the 49ers leading rusher in 2020, but he played 59% of the snaps in that week 1 contest. It was a monsoon, but he was very, very inefficient. Elijah Mitchell, just to kind of put this into context, had 6.8 yards per carry pre-injury in the limited snaps that he had, whereas Jeff Wilson had just 2.44. So very, very small numbers there. I believe it was 9 rushes for 22 total yards. I'm expecting him to be a very touchdown-dependent play here. I am expecting a running back by committee style approach. I think that we could see different involvements and, fractions sprinkled in here in terms of snap count percentages from all 3 of these players. And again, like I said, it's going to come down to Jeff Wilson scoring maybe 1 or 2 rushing touchdowns to get this done at the end of the day. And like we saw last week, the Seattle defensive front on the goal line is freaking stout, man. Those guys were up in the Broncos' face, causing 2 goal line lost fumbles for each Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, 2 very, very good running backs who are both more talented than the 3 players on this San Francisco roster and backfield here. So I'm sitting Jeff Wilson here in week 2, a little bit pessimistic on his outlook for the week. I think we've got stuff jumbled up a little bit here. Cam Akers was someone we were supposed to wait for until the end of the video because he's a pretty obvious one. My actual 2 best must-sits of the week we haven't talked through yet. The order, like I said, got a little bit screwed up here, but Akers, this is another just kind of PSA-style must-sit candidate. If you already are aware of this and you understand the reasons why this is obvious, skip to the next player, please. But basically, he played in just 18% of the snaps on Thursday Night Football in the opener against Buffalo. He had 0 fantasy points. I get it. He was your 4th-round pick. I don't care. Don't play him. Don't start him this week. Henderson had an 82% snap share on this offense. He got all of the valuable touches. He had 13 carries. He had 5 receptions, whereas Cam Akers was out here very few and far between. No snaps in the first quarter, so we didn't see Cam Akers until the second quarter of that game. Very, very shaky stuff. It sounds like McVay doesn't trust Akers right now. He says he wants to see more urgency from him. Whatever that means to Sean McVay, we'll take it. We'll run with it. Maybe he's just not healthy yet, but that's kind of something I tried to warn you guys about during draft season. Don't be starting Cam Akers this week. Don't, think that things are just going to magically snap their fingers. The genie's going to make your wishes come true, and you're going to get a valuable player out of Akers this week. Until we see different or hear differently from Sean McVay, I'm thinking Cam Akers is going to be someone that's got to stay on the bench for at least the foreseeable future. Now let's get back into where we expected to start today's video off with. Devin Singletary of the Buffalo Bills taking on the Tennessee Titans. I do want to say here, as someone who's hated on Devin Singletary for fantasy football at great extents, I was impressed. Extremely impressed with how he looked on opening Thursday night. As a pass catcher, as a rusher, he looked physical. He looked, ready for the challenge. But at the end of the day, this is a running back by committee, and it is painfully obvious. You can't avoid it. You can't argue against it. there are multiple running backs factored in and involved in this offensive system, which is very spooky and not something you like to see for an undersized running back that isn't the team's preferred goal line back of choice. Good news for Devin Singletary, though. He did have a 59% snap share in week 1. Zach Moss had a 37% snap share, and James Cook had just 5%. He did struggle, lost a fumble on his first and only career carry, so who knows if we'll see more of him anytime soon. But there is one very important name on that snap count percentage list that I didn't talk about, and he just so happens to have a 100% snap share of this Buffalo Bills offense, and his name is Josh Allen. Josh Allen is the goal line back for this team. Josh Allen is equally, if not more, of a rushing threat than Devin Singletary is. He is going to rush the football. He is going to rush it highly effectively, and he is going to steal value from Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, and James Cook every single week. And I hate to say it, but it's just the truth. It's just the facts. It's just the situation here. So you're going to have to overcome that already if you're Devin Singletary. It's unfortunate. Like I said, he impressed the heck out of me in the touches he got in week 1, but he's facing an uphill battle just because of how his team distributes offensive touches. I do want to mention, though, Saquon Barkley averaged 9.11 yards per carry, had 164 yards rushing against this Tennessee Titans defense this past week. He is Saquon Barkley. This is Devin Singletary. The difference, the discrepancy and explosiveness between those two players is night and day. And just another thing here, Saquon Barkley was the clear and obvious workhorse for that Giants team, whereas again, Singletary splitting with technically 3 other players, that being Cook, Moss, and Josh Allen. Finally here, Breece Hall. He was supposed to be our second player. I got things out of whack for today. I'm going a little crazy. I'm sorry, guys. Breece Hall at Cleveland. I'm sitting him again this week. The rookie running backs are off to a bit of a slow start here. Isaiah Pacheco was actually like the most impressive guy in week 1, but he did a lot of his work in mop-up time and garbage time. Breece Hall, though, I'm expecting a slightly more favorable game script to head his direction. I don't think it's going to be a 24-9 blowout loss like it was this past week where we saw a lot of Michael Carter on third down, a lot of pass-catching work for Michael Carter, but I do still expect him to struggle. I do still expect Michael Carter to be the favorite back in this offense for as long as Joe Flacco is the quarterback there. Joe Flacco is willing to throw those check down passes to the running back out of the backfield. Zach Wilson, not so much. Breece Hall's more of the pure rusher. If you're looking to pound it out, play physical football, Breece Hall's the guy you're looking at in that direction, but that's not expected for me again this week here in week 1. You've got guys like Jadeveon Clowney, Myles Garrett rushing the passer. Flacco's going to want to dump that ball out in space very quickly, get the ball out of his hands. Elijah Moore should have a nice game this week as well. And again, I'm just not so sure how many pure rushing attempts or goal line opportunities Breece Hall will have in store here for week 2 action in a very tough defensive matchup. I don't think Joe Flacco is going to have a fun time moving that football downfield. So a 45% snap share for Breece Hall in week 1, outsnapped to Michael Carter again at 60%. And like I said, he just hasn't totally grasped full control of New York's rushing offense yet, or just overall backfield usage. So be patient with him. He's a league-winning player, in my opinion, someone who's going to have top 12 weekly lineup value at some point this season. We just got to wait for that breakout, wait for him to get the opportunities, and we should be set, golden, and sealed away to have a great end of the season here for Breece Hall. But it's just week 2 again, so your patience is very much appreciated. But those are 5 running backs I'm sitting here for week 2 NFL action. If you enjoyed, again, smash that like button, click that subscribe button. If you're new around here, we're posting fantasy content every single day across multiple platforms. All the links to all of our platforms can be found in the description of today's video. Check out some of the other additional stuff, whether it's getting the edge with some exclusive content from SFS here via that QR code in the top right-hand corner, or by signing up for Underdog Fantasy using promo code SFS and depositing $10 or more. That gets you everything we have to offer here at SFS completely free for the entire season through this year's Super Bowl. So a lot of stuff to take advantage of, a lot of stuff in value to be had there. So go check all that out, and let's crush your leagues together this season. I'm having a ton of fun talking through these situations with you guys every single day, and I can't wait to keep talking more with it. So leave your questions in the comment section below. I'll get back to as many of you guys as I possibly can, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.